Welcome aboard to the Captain Crypto Show. Today, we join the Captain's Council to discuss the latest developments in the world of cryptocurrency. Here's your host, Kylan Hurt.
It's right real quick. It'll be on in a second. Okay. Hey guys, sorry about that. That's my fault. I did record the audio though, so afterward you will be able to hear the rest of that segment. What do you guys think? Is that enough on Coinbase? I feel like every week
Might
we're
as well
talking.
move to a new topic since nobody knows what the heck we're talking about.
It was a good topic to get muted anyway, right?
You can get that on the bonus content on the channel.
Check the podcast uploaded tonight.
I remember I said, what did I say? I was like, oh, everything went off without a hitch. Yeah. I even knocked on the wood, but apparently it didn't help. Thanks for letting us know that there's an issue with the audio, guys. Okay, so another issue, actually no, this one's an issue. Another story we saw today was a little bit of a continuation of a story from a couple of weeks ago. A while ago, it seems that the Litecoin Foundation, which is headed by Charlie Lee, had decided to contract with a company calling themselves LitePay. Or at least, I don't know if they're a company. No, I think they are a company. So essentially, they're supposed to be kind of like BitPay, working on integrating Litecoin with point-of-sale merchants, if you will. And it turns out about 11 days ago, there was an AMA on Reddit where the CEO for this LitePay company, he did it Ask Me Anything, and the users on Reddit were asking him plenty of stuff. And it turns out that a lot of his answers were very vague, and a lot of alarm bells went off. So as of, I think it's either yesterday, it seems that Kenneth Asari, I think is his name, he is the CEO of LitePay. Looks like he's walking away from it. I think the contract was worth about $50,000. And essentially, it sounds like he's abandoning it. He's probably running with the money. And he says he's selling the company, although I'm not sure if there's much to sell. So I guess the first thing I'll start off with is, Jackson, why do you think it's so hard for these cryptocurrencies to be able to integrate with point of sale?
I think the main reason is that nobody's really buying anything with crypto now. There's just not really that much of a reason to. It's inefficient. Not a lot of people have it. So even if you do get the best system working in the best possible way, your sales are going to be maybe like 1% less. I think the only numbers that I really remember were from overstock.com, and they said they just wasn't moving the line for them at all. So I think that's the main reason for why none of these projects really taking off.
I would say that the main problem is the fact that these companies still have to go through the bank. That's the number one problem. That's the roadblock. So
why is that? Out of curiosity for the audience, why does that cause a roadblock? I mean, there's obviously friction there, a lot of know your customer, anti-money laundering stuff. Waiting for transactions to clear is another big part.
I mean, it stems back to regulatory in general, I would say. Most of the bankers that I've talked to just still don't understand, right? I think some of the bigger institutions have wrapped their head around what Bitcoin is at the highest levels and are working on their own distributed ledger technology, applications, right? But I think when you look at the fact that when they know that this technology is going to revolutionize and change how payments are actually done, once people can figure out peer-to-peer truly, I think it's that they know that disruption is coming. So why would they make it any easier for cryptocurrencies in general? Plus, it's unregulated. It's unregulated, really, right? So, why would you stick your neck out? You'd have to basically come up with your own compliance, and then subsequently be held to almost like a higher standard. Welcome to living in California.
I think another reason is that because crypto prices tend to be so volatile, that not very many businesses have that in their risk profile of their company. So most bars that you go and buy some food and a beer with don't want to hold that Bitcoin because when it comes time to pay their food distributor in the month, if the crypto price has dropped by 50%, they're out of business basically. So they have to find some way for a bank to come in and provide the USD liquidity to buy the Bitcoin off them.
Yeah, for most users, if you're trying to hold on to your cryptocurrency and it's being volatile, for the most part, you don't really care. But if you're a business and you're trying to forecast things and you have profit margins that are, let's say, less than 10%, that volatility is enough over the course of a few months to maybe to go from profitable all the way down to having to shut down, right? So like you said, you've talked about the benefits are not quite there. You've talked about the cost. pure cost benefit analysis, I definitely understand why it's not worth it for some people.
Goes back to stable, and the stable coin argument again, right? Yeah, maybe it's a holy grail, but
this is why it's a holy grail, right?
But honestly, I think if you can work on some of these issues, and there are really smart, talented people working on it. I mean, there's already several stablecoin attempts right now
there's
that
a lot
are available.
I feel like there's a lot, yeah.
And there's more coming out all the time. And so I think that someone's going to get it right. And I think you can use the same principles as Bitcoin, which is why I have a favorite that I'm looking forward to. But I think the fact that they are taking that ethos of use, just like Bitcoin did, was use math to solve the problem, right? And incentivize people in the correct way. And then you've got the ecosystem ready to go. So I think that's really the difference about this stability, because that's one of the biggest problems to adoption, right? People don't feel comfortable. Like, there's a lot of people who can't afford a big loss, but the ease of use of being able to send that and subverting the Western Unions of the world who are building their own apps and potentially their own blockchain applications. Like, we're at a very critical point, I feel like, right now, where enterprise, the traditional people and companies who have the money, who can put together blockchain-related technologies, will actually subvert the peer-to-peer nature that the whole technology was built for. And you'll just be using that company's app with an underlying technology that makes their bottom line bigger, right? Or increases their bottom line. And that's all that they're really going to care about. It's because the company's job is to increase the value of the company for the shareholders.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, it's funny with this story. When we were talking about it a couple weeks ago, I think it was when Litecoin had gone down in price because LitePay was supposed to, or LitePay, excuse me, whatever it is. It's defunct now. They were supposed to get, I think, Visa. They're supposed to pair up with Visa. And I remember when it was announced that they were not able to make it happen, at the time I thought, okay, well, maybe Visa has kind of swerved them. But in retrospect, it seems like there's just maybe a sketchy guy that was in charge of this specific project. So the contract for this, the money, the $50K, came from the Litecoin Foundation, which is headed by Charlie Lee. And I was on, I'm not going to say which subreddit, but you could say a competitor subreddit earlier today, and seeing what other people had to say about this story. And they were not too gentle on Charlie Lee. So I'm curious, if he's the head of this foundation, this money's gone, I would essentially say gone missing, it's been misappropriated. How much responsibility do you think the leadership at Litecoin Foundation have, Jackson?
First, I don't think Charlie Lee is the head of the Litecoin Foundation, but he's totally up there.
He's somewhere there, okay.
Yeah, one of the founders for sure. I think that it does fall on them, but also I don't see why this is such a big story. Like, $50K is not that
it's
much.
Child's play.
I mean, I don't think the Litecoin Foundation is like the biggest foundation in the world, but I bet that $50K is not going to really touch their bottom line at all. They're going to have tons more money to pitch towards projects, and they've already came out and said what other projects they're looking to fill this gap. But yeah, it definitely falls on them, but I think a $50K mistake is a totally okay mistake for them to make in the position. They took a bet and lost, unfortunately. But
yeah, we're talking a hundreds of billions of dollars in this industry, so Litecoin's one of the bigger ones. To have one of their projects go bad, it's more about the project going bad, I suppose, than the 50 grand, right? I was talking about point of sales today, and it'd be so much better if we could do things on chain, but when you look at it, okay, obviously Lightning Network is not ready to go quite yet. So we were talking about, okay, some of the competitors like Bitcoin Cash, they're talking about scaling on-chain. And if you were to do something like Bitcoin Cash, if you're supposed to scale it on-chain to Visa-level transactions, the numbers that they're talking about were pretty astronomical. You're talking about blocks that are in the every 10 minutes that are in the gigabytes, right? So can you even transfer that over the internet? I mean, think about how long it takes to download 10 gigabytes, right?
yeah, with a really fast connection, you could definitely do it. But that's the argument, that would centralize things to only people that have those really fast connections.
Right. Okay, so
I wanted to touch
go
on
ahead.
one more thing there. The Lightning Network is a little bit far off, but I've been playing around with it more and more lately.
Right.
And I've done like a couple transactions now. It looks like it's getting pretty close. In the next couple of months, if it does come online, I'm wondering if we will start seeing this trend of companies stopping accepting Bitcoin, reverse, and start seeing more people start to accept Bitcoin, or if we got such a bad reputation with all these bad experiences with these companies that they won't want to get back in until they see a lot more.
Yeah, do you think the bad is because of the volatility, or are you more talking about the bottlenecks that were occurring during the peak times?
Yeah, I'm talking about like
both, I guess.
Yeah, anything that gave you a bad experience, which could have been high fees, could have been blocks being full and getting your transactions stuck, stuff like that. And then on terms of like LitePay and BitPay, charging fees and stuff like that.
Right.
With Lightning, you'll be able to have a easier experience for all the customers and have instant payments, so you don't have to worry about all those things and a lot lower fees. But I'm just worried that we've kind of wrecked the reputation of Bitcoin as a payment system.
Right, so I am curious because you have been talking about maybe learning some JavaScript, and I know we're getting very techie here, but something like Lightning Network would probably need developers who can do JavaScript, right? It's a lot of user interface work that'll have to be done. Is that something that you're thinking about?
I'm currently writing an app just as a proof of concept.
All right, that's what I like to hear.
Nice.
Using Lightning to play blackjack. So you send $1 of Bitcoin to my
Gambling
server,
is his first app.
play one game of blackjack and get your winnings back if you win, but I'm far off.
Is it pretty challenging?
I think that the Lightning part, both LND and C Lightning, there are two different implementations of Lightning. Both have an easy like web application, and Blockstream's been pushing out a lot of like examples of using theirs.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff that you can kind of draw off of to see how it works, and it is dead simple. Like
Okay.
the Lightning Network doesn't work like a charm yet, but I think that will come. But connecting to it is actually really easy.
Right. Yeah, I'll go ahead.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I thought that's enough on that story. I was going to mention, though, while we're at it, I think I mentioned it last time as well, is starting on April 4th, we're having our first event, San Diego Blockchain Development Meetup, and yours truly is the organizer, so we'll see how that goes. I'm probably going to record it, maybe even live stream it. We have one of our developers, Ellie Ron, giving a presentation on how to interact with the blockchain with JavaScript. I think Jackson's RSVP'd.
I think I was the first one to RSVP.
I'm the organizer, so I know, you know what I mean? I see all this stuff going on in the background, but hopefully we'll be able to get that video up so that people can take a look and maybe even learn from Ellie Ron's presentation.
What day is that?
That is, I think,
April 2nd,
next
I think.
Wednesday, April...
Is it not?
Whatever next Wednesday. I think it's April 4th, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so I'm very excited about that. Now, so for those of you who are in the audience who are listening or who are watching live, feel free to send us questions or comments. We wouldn't have known the audio wasn't working without you guys. Literally can't do it without you guys. You guys are saving our butts. So at the end of each story, we might take a look, see if there are questions or comments related to the story, but then also if there are other stories that you want us to try to touch on, go ahead and feel free to comment, and we'll see if we can get to them if we feel that we are at least up to date on those specific stories. So I think next, Chris, you have a story coming out of Tennessee. Sounds like the governor, at first I thought it was that they were introducing legislation, but it sounds like the legislation has actually been signed into law.
Yeah, so it's a little bizarre, and it seems more the way when I started looking into it further. At first, so I have a client who's working, and their company is based in Tennessee. So I thought, oh well, this would be really great for them to kind of work an angle, get in with the government, talk about what they're doing, and see how that can actually relate to how the new law has been put across. Except the law doesn't really, from what I read, doesn't really have a whole lot of details. It's kind of ambiguous. It sounds like a white paper.
Right.
And I think it's actually going to make things a little bit worse.
That's not what I was expecting, but go on.
And I think this could be potentially somebody who wants to help make a name for themselves.
Politician, you're thinking?
Yeah,
that
like
introduced
it's
it?
a PR stunt almost, like, hey, let's get behind this and push this thing through because we're competing against the world.
Right.
And I get that to some degree. If the government's not moving on it, you feel like you need to stay up to date and give the people in your area maybe an advantage. I mean, being a first mover is something tech's all about, right? So I can't fault them necessarily for wanting to be more tech friendly, and maybe that's kind of the angle that they're actually trying to push, that they are more receptive to technology. I mean, they have a 0% income tax, I believe, for a state. So, much like Texas, and I think Tennessee is being one of these places where, at least from my understanding, there's a lot of people that are moving there because of the history in the entertainment industry, that you'll have people that are moving from LA and New York because they can get direct flights in, and there's a lot of good talent and production value people that are located there, and then you get no taxes, at least at the state level. So there's a benefit of moving there, and so I think maybe they're trying to entice some of these companies to maybe come in, and so who knows, maybe it doesn't, maybe it looks more of like a kind of a cheeky move up front right now, but it could actually turn out to be a good haven potentially, depending on how it's interpreted, right? That's the thing about law. Until it's actually interpreted in a case, like, you don't necessarily want to put your neck out there and be like, hey, we're a company in your backyard, check us out. And then,
hey, the smart contract says this, and the judge's like, no. Yeah, that doesn't fly here.
All you guys are selling is unregistered securities.
Sorry, you're losing your house.
Shut it down, right? So I think we'll have to wait and see how that pans out, but it goes to show you that states are starting to just make their moves, like they're doing in cannabis. They're not leaving it up to the federal level because they're moving too slow to give them an answer.
Right.
And so the states realize that they have the power to do certain things, so that they are. I don't know if that's going to be good or bad in the long run. I mean, New York's bit license wasn't good.
Right. Seems like they were trying to. New York has recently kind of backed away from that, right?
I haven't heard that.
I haven't heard that either.
That's what I heard, or at least some of them were voicing not concerns, regret about doing the bit license thing, which, if they don't retract or free things up a bit more, then they'll probably end up regretting it even more. So I'm curious, when you guys see it, this isn't the first time we've seen a politician kind of jump in front of the parade and pretend like they're leading it. Like, oh, we're over here in Tennessee and I'm the governor, or, I'm a House representative, and look at me, I'm hip, right? I'm hip with the blockchain thing.
I think Andreas
was that a pretty good impression?
I think Andreas had a good quote about, like, we have a leaderless revolution here, and that's not an advertisement looking for a leader. Like, we didn't want anybody to jump into leadership position here, but yeah, we see that quite a bit.
Yeah, we actually had, I'm not going to name names, but one of our recent meetups, we had a politician or someone who was running for, how would I say it? Running for
Congress.
Okay, there you go, Congress here in San Diego, and he decided that he was going to try to get it so that the elections would be on a blockchain, but when the audience members, which, by the way, if you think you're going to get away with this sort of stuff, and especially if you're having like live Q&As or something like that, the people within the blockchain tech industry, they will call you out on your BS pretty quickly, and that's exactly what I saw happened. So it was kind of interesting seeing this, wannabe politician squirm when he was asked questions. And
so I left because I wasn't feeling good.
Oh, you missed it.
And I came and set it up and introduced him and then walked away.
Yeah, I mean, you recorded it, right? You can probably watch it if you want.
Yeah, I did, but I haven't. So
we probably could have used you there. The conversation got a little bit out of hand. Two members of the audience just started talking back and forth between each other and just boxed the senator or the wannabe senator out, congressman. Yeah. It was pretty bad.
It was pretty funny.
Oh, okay, so it got out of control when I left. Awesome.
Yeah, I was proud of
Nobody
our
was
audience
throwing?
members. No.
I didn't know you were not there. Maybe we would have stepped in if we knew that you were there.
And the meetups end up pretty lively at times. Even this last time, the audience members are getting all sorts of feisty. It's enjoyable. So for those of you who don't go to the local meetups, you should go because they are fun. It's fun to network, and they're just the same way. Like I say, there's never a dull moment in crypto, and with the meetups, I think that still holds true.
Yeah, and if you know of other meetups, send them to the Bitcoin San Diego meetup. Well, we're the largest, oldest meetup group, and
coolest.
have the coolest members.
There you go.
Seriously, I think one of the problems here in San Diego is that a lot of things are siloed and people don't know where to go. And so I'm actually trying to do a better job of
centralizing
connecting the community. I don't think it needs to necessarily be centralized. I think your event
Blockchain
that you're gonna,
devs.
if I wasn't going to another event on that Wednesday in LA, I would be there. And there's another event that I have to get the information for too. I think it's coming up in a week or so. But it's another dev-related event. And so I think there's a lot of people doing a lot of good stuff, but it's not necessary. People just don't know about it. Like I found out about one the day after it happened, and it was literally 2 blocks from my house at the AC Lounge.
There.
And I'm like, I literally could have walked there, and I had no idea about it. I found out about it like the day after.
Yeah, I actually know people that go to that. That's fine. I think we're getting too much into San Diego. We got people. We're worldwide now, man. Then
let's kick it back out, because one of the things that ties into the whole like regulatory and the states making moves today is I got a message earlier from a friend through Twitter that the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So
the Commonwealth.
Yes,
not the state. The Commonwealth.
Yes, they're very very posh and proper. But they basically came out today and said, hey, there's 5 ICOs that we are basically putting the kibosh on. And
shutting them down.
The good thing was when I read the names, I was like, oh, I don't know any of these.
None of them are in your portfolio, right? That's always a good feeling.
And I think a lot of them actually didn't even launch, which was good because I think they were worried. So, yeah. Maybe we can put the link in the show notes to the website. But yeah, there's 5 more, and so Massachusetts is clamping down as well.
Yeah, it seems like just a couple months ago everyone was trying to add. There's all sorts of new ICOs happening. There still are, but we have seen this recurring theme recently where people have been clamping down on them, whether they're regulators or some of the exchanges are delisting or unlisting some of the crappy tokens, the shit coins, for lack of a better term. And I would actually say, as sad as it sounds, that projects are having their tokens unlisted or clamped down on, sometimes it warrants it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, preaching to the choir with you.
Most of them, right?
Well, didn't they have a recent the stat that came out that was something like there's only around 7% of ICO tokens are like actually have some substance to them. And I wish I had the actual article in front of me right now, but I was like, that actually seems about right.
Seems a bit high in my opinion. 70%.
Yeah. So let's see here. Jackson, you had some stories you wanted to go over. Do you want to go over those right now?
I had Lightning Labs that they were putting out from Blockstream. Blockstream
Labs with a B?
Yeah. So Lightning Labs produces LND.
Okay, got it.
Sorry, this is actually wrong. So LND is Lightning Labs implementation, but the implementation I wanted to talk about is actually C Lightning, which is Blockstream's implementation.
Is that literally written in C? Is that why they call it C?
I believe so, okay. Yeah. But recently, they've been having the week of Laps, which is just Lightning-enabled apps. And they've been dropping a new app that uses Lightning every day for the last 6 days. I think they have one more to come out tomorrow. So they have like a point-of-sale system.
There you go.
And they have a tipping bot. And they had one that was a little more technical for pay-per-call for APIs.
I think I saw that one.
Like that.
So that literally, is that like you're actually literally calling and paying for it? Is that, because it's called pay-per-call, right? I know there's some SMS.
Sorry. I think that one's a little bit different. That's for APIs. So calling an API.
Yeah, so
so it's a computer-to-computer.
Okay.
Your app calls for information from their app, and you send a small payment along with that call to pay for it.
So they are starting to have these, you said they're called L apps.
Yeah.
L apps.
I think that is just a dig at dApps, which I think that most of the people that support laps think are useless.
Yeah.
So that's where I like it from. But anyway, all these projects seem like really well notated in the code, and they are there that are on an open license. Anybody can go in, dig around, learn how they made them, expand on them, change them in any way you want. And it's just kind of a cool use case that they are kind of like pushing and trying to get people to start writing stuff for Lightning and develop the network.
Yeah, that's cool. They're already starting to have these applications come out, because it seems like with Ethereum, it's taken like the the dApps started coming out around the same time as the Laps, right? The Lightning apps, and the Lightning seems like it started being developed quite a bit later than actual Ethereum. But maybe they were already building upon a platform, maybe. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just biased, though. But for me, dApps started way back with the DAO, which failed.
Yeah, that one crashed and burned.
But then, since then, I honestly don't know a single dApp that I'd argue was useful. Where each one of these laps, I think I could make a pretty good argument that they're all useful, and it's only been 7 days since the term lap was coined, basically.
Yeah, this definitely just seems like a more recent occurrence, and it is good that I know some of the, like you said, some of the dApps, the first ones for Ethereum that have come out are not the most. I would say that I don't know how much utility they have, to put it simply, but it seems like they are getting better, and like you said, with the Lightning apps, it's nice to see these kind of, I guess you could call them second layer. Actually, I don't know if second layer is the right term. Actually, no, that's right, because that's the application layer. Yeah, it's nice seeing actual applications being written that are using cryptocurrency, because for the longest time, it's essentially only been, hey, I'm sending you money, I'm receiving money, something as simple as that. So, Chris, I'm kind of curious, have you seen any decentralized apps or Lightning apps that you think might be useful? I know some people like the whole CryptoKitties thing. For me, I'm not really big on those sorts of games, or are there applications that you would like to see rolled out?
Yeah, I think you stumped me.
It's a very technical question.
I haven't been looking at a lot of decentralized apps right now, so I'm probably not the best person to ask regarding that.
Got it.
Unfortunately, but as far like when you think about like what decentralized applications, I'm still really excited about the exchanges. That's still really, I think, one of the best use cases.
Well, that is a decentralized. If they can do a decentralized exchange, that could be a decentralized app, right? I think that would.
That's the one I'm looking forward to the most.
Very good. I think a lot of people are.
So I'm also very excited about that too.
There's quite a few of them, I think.
Yeah,
already, so.
But I don't think you really need to have like a decentralized, like blockchain type system for that. You just need to have atomic swaps, and then all you need is a website where you can go in and get paired off with somebody who wants your trade. So I don't know if I call that a dApp, but a decentralized exchange is very interesting. But I mean, it's kind of like a BitTorrent, where all you have to do is have the index site where it's centralized, it doesn't matter. But as long as anybody can peer-to-peer link up with somebody else and make a trade without an intermediary, then it's decentralized. But you can have the index centralized just because it's a useful way of doing it.
Yeah, but couldn't you DDoS that or like attack it so you could render the centralized meeting point like useless? Essentially?
Yeah, you certainly could, but I don't know. Like, if you built something on Ethereum, you can DDoS Ethereum. You can take down everything on Ethereum, but just with the pretty simple, fairly cheap attack. So putting a bunch of decentralized things on Ethereum would make it a lot harder, because you'd be using up a lot of the bandwidth of Ethereum. But maybe it'll happen someday.
Have you looked at all with because of Rootstock going live or RSK going live and the ability to use smart contracts on Bitcoin, do you think that will open things up for development using Lightning and smart contracts?
Well,
I mean, like that combination right there, will that actually, like, could that lead to like batching of transactions and processing of things through smart contracts that actually would potentially change how things are accounted for or swapped?
Well, I mean, Lightning is a smart contract, or at least relies on smart contracts. So, I mean, that term is just poorly defined in general. But for me, any smart contract that requires external information to be entered onto the blockchain is pretty dicey. And I think that's what most of Ethereum or, sorry, what's the Rootstock
yeah,
would kind of rely on. So maybe, but I'm not seeing anything interesting in that direction, in my opinion.
Yeah, what I always wonder is that since Bitcoin was written without too much emphasis on, I guess it's the like smart contracts, I wonder if it's more difficult. I haven't looked that closely into rootstock, but I wonder if it's more difficult to implement things or to code with it because it was, for lack of a better term, an afterthought. Whereas like with Ethereum, one of the big reasons that they made it was because they wanted to make it easier to program the currency itself. So I think, and maybe we don't have the answer for that yet, but I think hopefully by the end of this year we'll have more implementations of rootstock and, like you said, smart contracts on Bitcoin. I'm actually looking forward to it. So I think it's good to see that Ethereum has some competition out there and that people are really trying to push, I guess, essentially push the limits of the cryptocurrencies. Okay, so another story that I looked into, and this is one that seems like it's still somewhat developing, so I don't want to get too much into the details, but you guys are familiar with CoinMarketCap.com, right? You'd have to be living under, well, I'm not going to go there because some of the audience members probably don't know what it is. So if you're wondering, if you want to look at some statistics for cryptocurrency, you wanted to be able to look at them quickly, see a bunch of charts, compare them, see if they're green or red, they're going up and down, what's the market cap at, what's the price at. A lot of people go to CoinMarketCap.com. In fact, if you're in front of your computer, you can go ahead and take a look. It's a very visually appealing user interface, and you can really take in a lot of information about it or about cryptocurrencies very quickly. But one of the things that I saw recently was that there are essentially some I would say relatively serious allegations that have been posted against the site. It seems that there are reservations about how they are accounting for some of the statistics. That includes circulating supply was one of the big ones that they were pointing out. Essentially, they were saying that since CoinMarketCap, I guess the people who are in charge of it have been very, how would you say, not transparent. It's kind of like they're kind of like mysterious, right? And when they have, how would I say it? When they have like 1,500, I think they have something like 1,500 coins on there. That means that somehow they have to try to collect live data for 1,500 different currencies, 1,500 different projects or more, try to be able to count, for example, how many units of the currencies are actually in circulation. And that by itself, okay, what does in circulation even mean, right? So because sometimes there's a project and it's a currency project and the organization that's kind of decentralized but is kind of spearheading it. Maybe they have some, maybe they're using some. Like at what point is something considered, how would you say it, circulating? So there's kind of like a big question about, okay, well, for starters, how do you even decide what is considered circulating and what is not? But then there's also the question of, okay, so let's say they're getting their information for a Litecoin from a website. And that website has an API, right? So the website feeds people data. And then let's say that website goes down. Then the question becomes, okay, well now where do you get your circulating supply from? Do you use the supply that you had last, or do you just put a question mark in there? And they're finding that even if it's almost like they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. So if, for example, they say, okay, let's put in a question mark because we're not really sure where the circulating supply is right now, what they're finding is just by putting that question mark in there, it affects the market cap, the calculated market cap, and that causes how would you say it? That causes the actual currency itself to plummet. And part of that is because so many people are using CoinMarketCap.com in order to get their statistics. And now it turns out that when they're making changes related to the statistics, at least according to, let's see who the actual, okay, I don't know if there's an actual name on the person that wrote this article. They just go by the username CoinMarketCapped. So kind of like Goxed, right? Or Bitfinexed, right? But they're saying that based on the activity that they're seeing for currencies, they're saying that they are accusing the staff of CoinMarketCap.com of, how would I say this, of trading based on information that they have and doing trading, essentially kind of like insider trading, making strategic moves with their reserves before they take specific actions on their website. Does that make sense? they're essentially taking advantage of their role.
They're delaying the information to the public and then moving on it beforehand.
So I guess I'll make this a little bit more of an abstract question. Do you think it's an issue that this specific website has as much use as it does? Because I haven't really seen. I know that there are competitors out there, but I've never really. I never really thought there was an issue with CoinMarketCap.com. But obviously, reading something like this makes me wonder.
I mean, I wouldn't use it for like basing my trades off of.
Right.
I mean, obviously, whatever exchange you're on is where you're going to base your trades off of, right?
Right.
Or other live market exchanges if you're doing ARB. But like, I think that it's probably. I mean, if they're doing it and it's really actually causing exchanges to fluctuate in their pricing, then yeah, that's messed up, and they should be held accountable for that, and they should have better practices internally. But I think if it's just a point of reference to be like, oh, what's the approximate price right now? Like, it's probably not that big of a deal. So it needs to say like, for amusement purposes only, or something like.
A little disclaimer,
a pop-up.
Yeah.
Click here, you accept these terms.
Just to cover their bases. That I wouldn't be surprised if you see that soon, right? But then again, if it's something where no one knows where, who they are or exactly where they are based out of, then maybe they'll just keep it going and see how long they can ride this out. Jackson, is this a website that you use? Do you use it often? Or you're probably at least familiar with it, right?
Yeah, I try to stay away from the price at all times just because it's stressful anyway.
Especially right now.
Yeah, but I do use CoinMarketCap fairly frequently. I do try to use CoinCap.com, which I believe is put out by the same people that do Shapeshift. Okay. Which it's another very clean site. It's not as popular, but it seems. Oh, you're right. It's CoinCap.io. Sorry about that. But I just think it's really interesting that like a lot of people that started in Bitcoin as like the libertarian camp wanted this decentralized, unregulated currency. But a lot of these things that come with an unregulated currency are not ideal either. Like having a
quote unquote insider trading, right?
Yeah, having information that isn't equal across the entire market can have a big effect. And if you have a huge site, which apparently CoinMarketCap.com is the biggest site in crypto, like it gets most visitors of all sites in the crypto industry.
Yeah, I heard somebody saying that they were going to they wanted to put a banner ad for an ICO that they were going to launch on there, and it was $50,000 a day.
Yeah, that
is a lot of visitors.
You got to think they probably have maybe multiple banners as well too.
Like I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So yeah,
we're in the wrong business.
Maybe they are. I mean, maybe they are incentivized because they're like making a couple $100,000 a day, right? And they're like, well, we got all this money, we got all this information. Maybe someone got greedy, like it doesn't take too much to put the dots, to connect the dots, and someone could probably check pretty easily and see like where those funds were moving and how often they were moving and what markets moved, right?
Yep. I think it's interesting that like most of these projects that start in the Bitcoin crypto space are just started in a garage. One person like, I want to do a little bit of a trading app or something like that. It seems like one of the most common things that people make. And then this one took off. Like as it started growing, at like what point did they start to have a responsibility to like report things like accurately? Like if you have a site that you made in your backyard and it goes, your garage, and it goes down and stops reporting prices accurately, and it's reporting Bitcoin prices that are off by like $100 or something like that. Like, are you responsible for that, or is it just something you made in your garage and who cares if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
What point did it switch over where like they're responsible?
Yeah, and I think there is kind of that Go ahead.
When some idiot decided that they were going to use that information to base a trade off of,
right?
Yeah.
Like, oh well, I got this guy online who said he's going to give me this and this price, and go look at CoinMarketCap.
Yeah, I feel like, well, for example, with CoinMarketCap, when they're like a token would not be listed, but then when they were going to list it, like the allegation is that they would probably buy a bunch of the tokens. Then they would list it. Then that means the demand would go up because then people would find out that this token exists. And at that point, if CoinMarketCap, if their staff had bought enough, then they would, be jumping up 70%. I saw this so many times. So many people, especially when they're new to crypto, they say, "Oh man, how about that IOTA? How about that Tron? How about that, this coin, that coin?" I'm like, dude, it already went up. Like, this is not how you do it. Like, you're too late. Like, get over it. Those, I guess when you're new, you don't really know these sorts of things. I will say that although I do look at the prices, I don't stress too much about them. And when I see things move too quickly, I generally assume that it's some sort of manipulation. I think that's the name of the game. I mean, you have to go in. This is a buyer beware market. And like you said, no one's forcing anyone to use this website. And people a big part of this space is that people don't want regulation. So there is that kind of buyer beware part of it. And I think that things are better off that way. And I think when you have something like this where there are allegations, that's good. This is kind of the market kind of regulating itself to a certain extent, right?
Yeah. I came into Bitcoin under that I want an unregulated currency, and the government's not doing a great job with it, and I want everything to be unregulated. But I don't feel like the market does a very good job of punishing bad actors.
Not yet, at least. Not even close yet.
So bouncing out to like something unrelated, I feel like there is this same story in the headlines right now with Facebook, where everybody is super pissed at Facebook. And to be honest, like, I don't really even care what they did. Like, if anybody thinks that their information that they put on Facebook was supposed to be private, it's just kind of silly to me. I think you should always assume that the internet is like a public park. Anybody can be listening to it anytime. If you want to have some privacy, you got to learn to whisper, which means encryption on the internet.
Right.
But everybody's super pissed at Facebook, and the price of it is going down, but I haven't seen that many people like stopping using Facebook. I think once it gets out of the news, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I don't know. Do you guys think it's going to stick?
There's just no alternatives right now, are there? I mean, I've heard this MeWe thing, but like, I don't know.
I mean, Facebook owns most of the alternatives.
Do they really?
Yeah, Instagram,
a few steps ahead.
And what's the chat one that they own too? I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think that's going to people just go back to using it because the next story will be on in the news, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, whatever." We'll just still use it. Like,
but there is no alternative at this point, I think, is part of the issue. And actually, I'm actually glad you brought this up, because this is an area where
people don't stop shopping at Target, right?
Right.
Like, it doesn't.
What's wrong with Target, man? You got a problem with Target?
Well, they just got hacked and lost everybody's information, right?
See?
Like,
you're proving the point. I've already forgotten, right?
So that's what I mean. It's going to take them another 3 months, maybe at the most.
Yeah.
3 weeks, maybe. Right, and then it's on to the next thing, and it won't matter.
Yeah, and this is an area, as I was saying, this is an area where crypto can actually really be disruptive. There is, at this point, there essentially is the potential technology to create applications that are more decentralized and that, in my opinion, can do a better job of just being social media platforms. So Facebook, I mean, there's so many different issues. Facebook just had their recent issues. Twitter they've had an issue where a lot of people have been getting blocked or suspended or banned. So they were once marketed as kind of like a free speech application, and now it looks like that's kind of not coming to an end, but we're finding out where the limits of that is. And then with YouTube, you have people, if they say anything that's bad at all, they're getting demonetized, so they can lose their income just because the audience gets mad and reports it. So we're at a point where I think this is, I don't know if I'd quite call it a turning point, but society badly needs social media that is more decentralized, that is more pro-free speech. And with some applications, especially with stuff like EOS or with Steam or even with Ethereum, you think they maybe have the technology to be able to do it, but unfortunately it takes months, if not years, to build. So I'm curious, do you guys think that cryptocurrency and blockchain technology has the ability to disrupt social media as we know it? And if so, when do you think you would actually see some real significant disruption?
I think that, I definitely think that it's coming. I think it's Johnston's law. What can be decentralized will be, right? And I think what you're going to see is it's going to take another wave. When I earlier said that people are just going to go back to using it, what I didn't really talk about was what happens the next time this comes up, because it will come up again, and more people, because this is just the first pass of people hearing about like, oh wait, what, my information isn't private to me, and it'll happen again with another feverish like group of media, like people just shoving this in your throat, and there's going to be no way for people to ignore it again. Just like when Bitcoin hit almost 20K and it was on every news channel every night for like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, like people started to wake up. So I think it'll be a culmination of two things. One, maturity of the technology and people actually building the platforms, and two, another price wave of cryptocurrency, and culminating in a newsworthy event that brings up privacy issues again. I think the two of those things over the next 3 years will probably be a driving factor that will push people and the younger generation, right? Because it's always the younger generation that adopts the technology, and then the older people backfill into it, right? Like Facebook didn't start out with grandmas and grandpas,
right?
And now everyone's like, oh well, I can talk to my grandkids through Facebook, or I can talk to my friends or whatever. Like everybody's on it, so I'll be on it too.
Yeah, I feel like the way that Americans work, at least, it's like we don't care about an issue until it affects like some celebrity that we like, and then all of a sudden there's some sort of like revolution that happens, right? It's like you like Twitter, and then Donald Trump gets on, and then all of a sudden you hate Twitter. It's like the Americans gravitate to personalities, it seems, especially celebrities, right? That's just the nature of Americans. But I'm curious, Jackson, what do you think it would take for people to really push away from the traditional social media?
Real quick, I think that is the exact story, actually. I don't think really anybody really cares about their privacy and data in this world. I think that they care that Facebook gets used to get Donald Trump elected, and I think that's the backlash that we're seeing. But I could be wrong, but I've seen no reaction to Target or Home Depot getting hacked and having your personal data leaked. Equifax getting hacked. Nobody cared. But if it was related to Trump, then people would get pretty pissed.
Oh, yeah. They'll get up in arms real quick.
But to answer the rest of your question for decentralizing social media, I think that if you can see people paying for social media, then maybe, but I don't think you can. I think that people will always choose free option, which needs to be monetized somehow. You got to pay for developers, you got to pay for servers.
And that means data being sold, right?
Yep. So I don't really think so, but I'd love to see a world where people are willing to pay for news and pay for content and social media. But
do you think there'll be a hybrid like period,
like in between?
Yeah, where there's like half pay, half like you can click the boxes of what you want to give away, and like you're all of a sudden
like turns off the
your
ads
subscription goes from like $7.99 a month down to like $2.99 a month because you give up a bunch of certain information.
I feel like people are just going to go with the free one because they don't care about their privacy.
At least it would be more opt-in. So I kind of do like that model.
Right.
But I do think everybody would choose free.
I think it would depend on the price. So I guess I could see it. The one thing I will say is that I think there is a lot of potential here. And since I've been writing web applications for almost 6 years now or something like that, there's a part of me that really wants to jump into this space because I feel like it's just completely ripe for the taking. People are so sick of social media. You're right, though. It is kind of like the user experience would be difficult. How would you get someone, oh, hey, I know you want to use this platform, but hey, you have to buy this token, this currency first, and you have to load it, and then it fluctuates, the price fluctuates, because that's kind of what it's like with Steam. Is the idea is it's a good idea, but the user experience just is not. It's not there. It's hopefully getting there, and hopefully some of the newer projects will be able to help streamline that process. But that's kind of a recurring theme in cryptocurrency and blockchain tech, right? Is the user experience. Hey, for us nerds, it's like, oh yeah, it's super easy, but for grandma and grandpa, it's not super easy. And if you're talking about a social network, you need as many people as you can, which means you need to make it easy for the lowest common denominator, right?
Yeah, I agree. We're still seeing attempts at it, right? Like Steam is one.
Oh yeah,
Endorse.
I think we'll see more and more attempts.
Like the LinkedIn, decentralized like LinkedIn type of companies, right?
Right.
So I think they're definitely going to there's going to be a lot of attempts at them, right? And I think it's just going to be a matter of time before there's an iteration where there's going to be who knows? Maybe there'll be like a schism where there'll be privacy people and there'll be public people, you know,
Right.
and like there'll be two different kind of data sets, and be like, I can't find you on the internet anywhere. You're like, oh well, I've gone private, right? And you're just like, people will be like, well, what does that mean? And you'll be like, oh well, I switched over to like using these other services, or I pay $4.99 a month for Facebook because I don't want them to track me or keep any of my information, right? And all my images are mine or something. And people will be like, whoa, what? That's really weird. But you know, I think people will start to get it, and maybe that's the way that you have like a grassroots movement about teaching people about privacy.
Yeah, I mean, if I wasn't already working full time, I think it'd be so much fun to get into that space, because I think that is just the way that social media is going. And social media, there's so much money in it too, that you can't help but look at it, licking your chops. It takes obviously a long time to write an app, especially have one as good as Reddit or in fact, we'll talk about Reddit in a second, or Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. But hopefully the developers out there are at least considering jumping in. I'll be honest, I haven't seen quite enough organization coordination with some of these projects, some of these currencies. I'd like to see a little bit more, but that's kind of why one of the reasons I created the San Diego Blockchain Developer Meetup is to try to help help people organize and coordinate, because that is one thing that is missing. So I guess jumping or leaping with that same topic, you guys are familiar with Reddit, right? And hopefully the audience is familiar with Reddit. It's a pretty good website, reddit.com. They have subreddits where you have little areas that are dedicated to each to essentially any sort of given topic. So recently something happened, and this is something that most people probably don't care about, but for me it's something I've always found the sort of darknet part of cryptocurrency to be fascinating. And there was a very busy subreddit called DarknetMarkets where people could find out information about websites like the Silk Road, and they can help. They could talk with each other. They could help each other seek whatever products they're looking for on the darknet markets. Obviously, the stereotypical examples are like are drugs mostly. But so this was a very big subreddit, and it seems like Reddit has recently started, how would I say it, eliminating these sorts of subreddits. There's kind of a rumor that they want to sell the company, or go public, like in a year or two. And it sounds like that might be the reason why they shut down the DarknetMarkets subreddit. So, I mean, I don't expect you guys to give a real answer, but have you ever checked out those subreddits, or do you think a website, if they're going public, do they have to kind of shut down the sort of seedy, quote-unquote seedy activity going on in those sorts of subreddits?
I'm pretty straight edge. I've never really bought
anything
me too. From the darknet markets, but I actually have poked around in there, like way back when.
It's interesting.
When that was the meme around Bitcoin that is only good for drugs. I wanted to know, like, how does this system actually work? So I've been on that particular subreddit, and what I saw was a bunch of people peacefully trying to figure out how to safely consume some drugs that they could do it in a way that wouldn't hurt them and didn't want to hurt anybody else. They just wanted to do their own thing, which I have absolutely no problem with. And I did not see anything in there about might be considered like dangerous, like forced prostitution or guns for trying to commit mass shootings like the news would want you to believe. But then I also jumped on like their Tor servers to like see like how easy it was to actually like buy this stuff, and it all actually looked a lot more professional than I would have guessed. But as far as Reddit blocking it, like, I mean, there's definitely precedent for them deleting subreddits that broke their terms and conditions before. So I don't really think that's leading up to them trying to prep to sell themselves an IPO or something like that, but they very well might be. And I don't really have a problem with them blocking it. If they're a private company, they have the option to control what is said on there.
Yeah, and I've been pretty public about that I oppose the war on drugs. The irony is that something like this, it's maybe they might think it's bad for their image that they have this subreddit, but the truth is, by having people be able to communicate there, I'm sure they'll say, well, we don't want to encourage people to do illegal activity. But the truth is, a lot of these people who want to experiment with illicit substances, when they have a website like this where they can actually communicate, they actually that actually helps prevent issues. Because if there's an issue, they can actually discuss it. They can actually communicate, let each other know that, hey, there's this drug that's bad, or whatever the example could be. So there is a sort of irony that they're probably shutting it down because they don't want to encourage illicit substance abuse. But on the other hand, having subreddit like that actually probably has saved countless lives.
I would agree with you that it's probably good as far as a community, but it's still, if there's any talk anywhere of transaction for Schedule 1 drugs and they're proliferating that kind of behavior on their platform, then just out of sheer fear of them being prosecuted in someone's overdose death or something, right? Like, I mean,
even the PR of having a post related to someone's death in there.
Yeah, I think that would be devastating for them in the long term, and I think it would be like, what's really going on, and then it would show back. Then it would just be negative light across the board on so many different different pieces, like especially like if crypto is involved again, and like, I think it would just be. There still needs to be a place for it, is what I'm saying. But I can understand being a private company, like I said, having to watch your back, and your lawyers will probably be like, yo, we got to get rid of this.
Yeah, lots of costs, not too many benefits, really.
Yeah, I mean, how do you manage, like, I mean, just even like a cannabis one, right? In California and Colorado, Oregon, Washington, right? Some other places that it's illegal,
different
right? Or medical
jurisdictions.
And then how do you keep people from like a state that's not to get in one of those, right? I mean, it kind of becomes a ridiculous point at some level, but I think we kind of come to a consensus that it's necessary because it does good for the community as far as having a place to share actual information in a trusted way, but not good in the fact that someone can go to jail by two people just being able to do something that's not doing any harm to anybody else.
Right. Yeah, well, I guess this is another area where some sort of disruptive social media could jump in as well, right? Because if you have it decentralized, then no one has to worry about liability. They don't have to worry about PR, and with freedom of speech, they don't have to worry about. Essentially, you should be able to say whatever you want on the internet, right? So at least a lot of the blockchain tech, how would I say it, advocates would say so.
I'm sure that there's some of the privacy coin platforms that are wishing that someone would build something with their token as kind of like the incentive model backing that type of marketplace or something, where because you want to have a reputation within that ecosystem so that you can get trusted information, but you also want to be able to transact in that environment, but you also need privacy, right? So how does that work? And I think one step is privacy related coins, right?
Yeah, and speaking of, I'm going to go ahead and pivot. Speaking of privacy-related coins, there's kind of been a development recently with Monero. For the audience at home, Monero is a privacy coin, probably the leading privacy coin, at least by market cap. One that I pay pretty close attention to because, as you can tell from what I'm talking about with the DarknetMarkets, I have a little bit of a soft spot for those sorts of projects. But one of the things that they actually did recently was, I believe they're having a hard fork coming up, and they have decided to include code that would change their proof of work algorithm to make it more difficult for ASICs to mine Monero. So in the past, when I've seen other projects do this, I've openly made fun of them. I think Vertcoin was one of them where they were talking about, well, every time there's ASICs that can mine us really well, we're just going to hard fork again. And to me, that seems, maybe you're able to do that, but to me, it seems like, I'm not going to call it unnecessary, but risky, right? Because, okay, an ASIC miner, this is like a game of cat and mouse. The ASIC miners will eventually be able to mine the new proof of work algorithm because there's a lot of incentive for them to be able to do that, because you'll be the first ASIC miner to do that. And then what, are they going to keep on hard forking every time that happens? Jackson, what do you think? Does this, just knowing those basic minimal details, does this sound like something that's risky? Because with Bitcoin, for example, I don't think they've ever really not while they've been popular, they have not ever made a major change to their proof of work algorithm, have they?
No, I don't think it's ever changed, actually. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's incredibly interesting. I want to see how it goes. The thing about it is if you have a currency that is centralized enough that you can choose to do a hard fork whenever there's a potential ASIC on the market, then that's some form of centralization. And as it grows and gets bigger, you probably won't always be able to keep that level of control and working together with all the users to make sure that everybody switches at the right time. But at the other end of the fork, if you have only one person or one company producing ASICs like Bitcoin kind of does with Bitmain, then that's also a form of centralization. So it's kind of either side. And then pitching it over, there also is Ethereum ASICs that are coming onto the market that are actually looking at doing the same thing. Ethereum has promised that they would try to avoid ASICs in the past, so they might have the exact same situation going.
Yeah, it seems like ASIC resistance or ASIC proof is a bit of a, I don't know what you call it, a fool's errand. Chris, this is very technical stuff, but do you think something like that, is that risky, that they're going to try to change the algorithm that the currency is based on just so that they can buy some time to be resistant to ASICs? Does it even matter if ASICs can mine your coin?
Well, we see what ASICs do. It becomes an arms race for hardware. I think that if you're going to change your algorithm, you better know exactly what's going to happen. This is the thing that would scare me the most, is being a part of a project for such a long time,
years,
and then flipping the switch into something else just to buy yourself some time. I don't know if that's the right move. I mean, this is a tough business decision, and foundationally for the success of the token. I think maybe limited ASIC mining could, is that how harmful is that going to really be? I mean, I'm sure someone's done the calculations. I mean, that's the great thing about ASICs is you can kind of get some really good calculations based and figure out your ROI. So I think with some proper analysis, you would be able to determine whether it was cost effective to switch over to an algorithm that, who knows what does that do to the network if it shuts down, if there's an error.
Yeah, or if it's like slow. Let's say maybe there's a lot of ASIC miners out there and they don't know that. Maybe it's 80% of the hash rate, right? And then the next thing you know, none of those ASICs can mine it. All of a sudden you lose 80% of your hash rate. Monero does have an algorithm that kind of like adjusts things, but these are some situations that could hypothetically occur that could be really disruptive.
And another part of it is next time somebody makes a ASIC for your new proof of work algorithm, they're just not going to tell you. And they're just going to slowly ramp it up until you are definitely in that situation where 80% of your hash rate is on ASIC. Yeah. But I guess if you're going to be able to fork to change proof of work, you could probably also put in a temporary difficulty adjustment to get people back on track.
But even those are tricky, right?
Yeah, and it all is centralization.
Right.
Definitely. So personally, I think I would just let the ASICs go. If your coin is actually going to work, it's going to have to break through that someday or another.
Yeah, the irony is with Monero is that they're okay. Granted, they're not only focused on ASICs, but there's speculation, not in the form of like money speculation, but people speculate that a significant portion of the hash rate probably comes from malware, right? Because Monero's been utilized to mine Monero through JavaScript on people's browsers and through malware. So that's another thing where they're trying to find ways to detect if there's like a botnet or malware occurring, and of course there's a question of how to stop it. Because now they're worried that could cause centralization, because if the botnet's big enough and it's all coded by the same person, then whatever code that they run on can affect the network. Because that in itself is another form of centralization.
Oh, God, yeah.
This is such like a cat and mouse, there's no real... If you're winning for a little bit, it's only for a little bit. And the more you're winning, the more someone wants to catch up, right?
Yeah, I can see how that is a catch-22.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, that is the nature of the market, though. I suppose you can only ever buy yourself time.
Exactly.
Okay, so do you guys have any stories?
I had one more. Back in a couple of months ago, they had a really big crypto locker attack where a bunch of hospitals got all their PCs locked up with some malware that you have to pay Bitcoin to get them released.
Bitcoin though, not Monero.
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
that was actually one of the things I was to say. So there is another one right now. I believe it is Atlanta. Atlanta just had a whole bunch of their city systems locked up with a crypto locker, and they were demanding. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't a lot, but one of the things I wanted to ask you guys about is the story is that most of the darknet markets have switched to Monero, and I'm not on there enough to check. But why don't you think that the crypto locker scene has not switched to Monero yet? That I've seen.
That's a good question. I mean, that was my original question. Right? Like, why are they using Bitcoin? I suppose if you use Bitcoin right, that you might be able to wash it enough. Trying to think.
There's tumblers. I mean, you can still still get away with moving Bitcoin once it goes into,
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You can like shapeshift it maybe, or it's just some processes.
No, it's like
you can.
there's services like in jurisdictions that are not U.S. friendly, so to speak, where these services are set up, where they mix everything together, and then you get out minus a percentage for the service.
Right.
Right. And it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know why. Sometimes it can be as simple as the coder only knows how to code one currency, or maybe they've just gotten bored, or they don't feel like putting effort into it. It's hard for me to know because I've never actually written malware. I've written software that sucks, but I don't think that counts. I mean, not anymore though. Not anymore.
Just bad.
The thing that I put on is that they actually want it to be as easy as possible. So maybe getting Monero is that much more difficult because they actually want to get paid. So maybe sticking to Bitcoin allows you to use Coinbase to easily grab
to
that
like
money
get out.
To be able to get access to. If you're on the darknet markets, I mean, you probably already have enough experience to run Tor, so you probably figure out Monero. They can demand that, but
I would think those people know about Monero. So I don't know the reasoning why they wouldn't be using it. I'm not saying that they should.
Well, I mean, their customer's grandma trying to get her photos from her Hawaiian vacation. Back
so what exactly does it do? Is it just locks your files?
Yeah. So it gets on somebody's computer somehow, malware, and then encrypts all their files, and then to unlock them, you'll need the private key that only they can provide, and they want you to pay for it. So,
and that's a pretty common one, right? I've heard of it. I just don't know if it's the same one. Like, so there's the malware has names, I guess I knew that, but like, certain malware becomes like famous.
Yeah. What was the WannaCry? Was that the one?
I think that was a big one. Someone somewhere is putting that on their resume.
Well, and then they reuse code from each other, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
There's places in the darknet you can go to like get malware.
Oh yeah, and you could probably buy it off the
like surveillance stuff, things like that. Like that would intrigue me more than some of the other illicit activities.
I feel like we don't see it that much, but you could do insider job crypto locker really easily. Like just walk it in on a thumb drive, deploy it with code that you made yourself and like made yourself.
I'm gonna turn off all my laptops in this apartment. I don't know what's going on over here. I mean, I guess you could, especially if you work, I don't know, if you worked for some big company, maybe. Obviously, we're not encouraging anyone to do that.
And have to do some Mr. Robot type stuff and fry their backups too. And
drill them.
Sprinkle USBs in the parking lot.
Right.
All right. Do you guys have any more stories?
No, I'm storied out.
I'll end it on just one last one. This one's just a silly one. So there's this man. He's a very how would I say it? He's a sensei. He's a famous martial artist. His name's Steven Seagal. You may have heard of him. Sensei Seagal has endorsed. He endorsed this coin a while ago. It's actually called Bitcoin. Have you heard of it? It's BITCOIIN. And apparently he's I just learned of this the other day. So this is, I mean, of all the celebrity endorsements, this might be the most shameless one. It's do that. But yeah, essentially, Steven Seagal has he threw his weight behind this fake coin. It says the second generation of crypto economy. That's Bitcoin.
With two eyes?
With two eyes. And it says, exit wound. Steven Seagal founders abandoned Bitcoin as ICO ends. So, Steven Seagal, SS, Satoshi, starts with S. All I'm saying is, you know.
So stupid.
I'll let you guys connect the dots. All right, ladies and gents, I think that's it for the Captain's Council tonight. So until next time, this is your captain wishing you fair winds and following seas. Set sail.
See ya.